Welcome back to Ribbon Candy Hooking. I'm Deanna. Now I've got myself wondering, how many times have I said that? It's been a lot. I don't actually know the answer to that question. Thank you so much. Tonight is a night to celebrate. So I'm actually having a unit of alcohol tonight. I'm having a beer to join in the celebration because last night, just while I was about to retire for the evening and wind it down, I got an email from YouTube, and they send me emails now and then to tell me that I've sort of leveled up somehow and I've got X amount of views or X amount of subscribers or whatever. And I don't really understand what that means. But it's always nice, right? If they're telling me something good is happening. Well, last night it was congratulations on your 5-year anniversary. And I thought, no, they can't have that right. And then I thought about it and I thought, oh my God, it has been 5 years. Hey, thank you so much for these great 5 years. We've only just begun because we are scratching the surface of all of the great fun we can have and all of the good that we can do. I'm going to say cheers, my dears, before we get started. I haven't had a beer in a really long time. I think like summer. So I want to check in with everybody tonight. But I want to say it's today I was expecting to do work. And, it is work getting a show ready. But I wasn't expecting to spend the whole day doing it. But when I realized that we had an anniversary on our hands, I thought we cannot squander this chance to celebrate together. So I spent almost the entire day going through the first year of YouTube videos. And what I put together was kind of just a very quick look at scratching the surface of just the beginning of the channel and some of the episodes that I think for me were extra fun to make and funny and I think had good value for this or for that. And, I never look back at the past videos. I'm always doing what I'm doing and kind of treading water with figuring out what to do next and making sure I have things for sale and making sure things move forward with the business and trying to find interesting things to put up for us to talk about on live shows and in recorded videos. And I never look back at stuff because I just don't have the time. And today was the first day that I did. And it really was like just so, I don't even know what the right word is. I was so proud that I had recorded between 1,000 and 2,000 videos at this point. I can't even tell. It's a lot. And we've had so many useful conversations. And I feel like, I'm not going to take credit for anything big, believe me. But I feel like, we have together in being here and showing up to talk and to share things and to, participate in conversations about new books and events and old books and techniques and things we're doing and things we're planning and things we're working on. I feel like all this collective work that we've done together here at the channel just by showing up has created a change in the volume of rug hookers. There's a lot more than there were when I started. But also I think the tone. I feel like we've been spreading the message about being really sort of accepting of everybody's different styles and techniques. And I feel like that has definitely helped that conversation in the rug hooking world. Everybody seems a bit more mellow than they did 5 years ago. Now, maybe that's COVID, maybe that's whatever. Maybe that's us all getting a little bit older. But I think we have done tremendous work here, and I am super proud. I was really excited looking back on some of the videos. And as I say, I was just looking at the first year. I didn't even clear the first year. So before we get started, Ruth, it's great to see you. Welcome back. Happy Friday night. Haven't made anything lately. Well, you know what? Sometimes it's just not the right time, right? Sometimes it's just not the right time. There's no point in doing something when you're not feeling it, right? Because it's your spare time and it's your energy and it's your thought. You do stuff when it really strikes you, right? You strike when the iron is hot, and it goes best that way. We don't do our best work when we don't feel like it. So never feel, this is supposed to be fun. Never feel like it's an obligation. And as soon as it's the right time, I know that you will be doing some cracking work. But there's no rush, is there? Melissa, great to see you. Cheers to 5 years. Ooh, you made a poem. You sure have made an incredible impact. Thank you so much. Becky, great to see you. Thank you so much. Yeah, you found me a long time ago. Becky found me way at the beginning. I was looking at some of the names from the beginning of people I was talking to, and some I don't see some of the names anymore. And that is just law of averages. That is to be expected because, we all do a lot of different things. Besides, I mean, I tend to do just this because I turned it into a business. But if it weren't for that, I would probably have crocheted and knitted more scarves and garments for myself and done a bit more sewing or quilting. We all like to do lots of different things. So it's not surprising that a lot of people have kind of transitioned to other things and I don't really see them pop up anymore. But I have to say it is remarkable how many people whose names still pop up from the very beginning. Yeah, it's a lot. And Karen, great to see you. Congratulations from cold Black Forest, Colorado. You have the fire going to play. Oh, I saw the cats, how the kittens, how cute. Congratulations on them. What a couple of sweethearts. And a glass of wine. And Cheryl on the Cape. Cheers, my dears. Great to see you. We are staying warm. Are you having really cold weather on Cape Cod? We were in the 40s today, but for some reason I was so cold. Like I was cold to the bone. I had like two pairs of socks on, and then I put my slippers on too. I could barely pull my slippers over two pairs of socks. It was like crazy how cold I was, and I expected it to be like 15 outside, and the car said it was like 43, and I thought, oh, God knows what's going on. Ruth says you've built quite a business. Congrats. Thank you. Thank you. Could not have done it alone. Obviously, it's a group effort. And I was thinking about that. Did you see the video that I recorded the other day when I went to Newport to deal with some Tigger stuff, getting the hotel sorted out, the Marriott? And I was with my buddy Naomi from Ravensgate Primitives, and I love being with her. We're so close. And she has a rug hooking business too, Ravensgate Primitives, and we've talked to her a few times at her studio, and our mutual buddy is Haley, and all of us are on the board for Tigger. So we went over to Haley's. She had a busy day, so she wasn't able to come to the hotel, and we stopped after and recorded a video. And in the video, I was kind of following Haley around her studio, where for health reasons, for the most part, she's been doing different kinds of work. So she's been doing more sort of mixed media, fiber, collage, mixed medium, meaning paper and fiber and other stuff too, plastics and all kinds of stuff, but mostly fiber. And it was such a nice conversation because her friend Liz from across the hall, now she works in kind of a foundry building, like an old mill, the Cutler Mill in Warren, Rhode Island. You can find her there. Her buddy Liz is across the hall, and she also does fiber art, but different. And Liz has been learning to rug hook, and they have kind of agreed to support each other with their creative work, and they are kind of holding each other accountable and supporting one another, and pushing each other forward, giving each other credible, usable, and kind critiques, so that they are each other's partner in creative work, and it just seemed like such a nice kind of symbiotic relationship where both people are benefiting hugely. Very gentle kind of a relationship. But I thought, what we do here is not unlike that, because you're tuning in, and I'm assuming you're hoping for some good content, for some laughs, for some downtime, for conversation, and to check in with your buddies who are in the thread as well. And I'm looking for all of those things and the companionship of being here, but I'm also looking for the accountability, because working in a vacuum and working by yourself, particularly in a craft where it's busy and I'm just constantly cutting, sewing, hooking, packing, it's lonely. So this is amazing for me too, and it's just a lucky thing that we found each other. We'll talk about those first days when we start the actual content. Kaz, thank you so much. Cocktail time, great to see you. I love what you sent today. Gail, good morning in Australia. Happy coffee time to you. Melanie, great to see you. Happy Friday from wet and cold Washington State. Oh, I bet. Good to see you, Melanie. And Barbara, good to see you. Cheers to 5 more years of doing it my way. Thank you. Thank you for noticing. I know you know all my ins and outs. But thank you for making that point, because we have not done things exactly according to the community all of the time. And I am super aware that I am on the outs with lots of people and lots of groups and stuff like that because of just the seat of the pants style that we've always worked in, and the casual, super inclusive and no rules way that we've approached this craft together, does put me on the outside of a lot of other rug hooking situations. But I'll take it. I'll take this group any day. I like what we do. I like the big, fat mashup of crazy styles and crazy people. I'll take it. I want to stay right here. Leah, great to see you. Congratulations on your 5. Can't wait so far. I know, me too, right? Thank you. Carol, great to see you. Cheers, my dears, to you too. Nikki, thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody. Goretti, great to see you. Congratulations. Thank you so much. Many more years to come, God willing. Becky, here from frozen upstate New York. Oh, God, I bet. Welcome, Becky. Happy Friday night. Linda B., you've been there since the beginning. Congratulations in New Jersey. Great to see you. And let's see. I wish I went with you to Haley's a week or two ago. Well, maybe next time, Nikki. I didn't even know I was going to stop by. We were kind of deciding, we didn't know how long we were going to be in Newport. And when we realized like we had concluded business in the morning, I thought, well, let's just make a detour and go see Haley, because I was missing her and I wanted to see her. So it was a fun stop, but I will definitely be making that stop again. She's a very good friend. Joy, great to see you. Thank you so much. Diane, great to see you. Welcome back. Great to see you. Denise, you did it. Good job. Great to see you. Mom, hello. So good to be here. Everyone, happy cocktail night. 5-year anniversary. Mom, you are featured heavily in the next slides, I have to say. They're all quite funny. Randy Coco from Virginia. First time here. Super extra welcome on your first time. Sorry about all the nonsense to start. This is just the first anniversary show that we've done so far. So kind of exciting. Super happy to have you. Huge welcome to you. Cece, happy 5 years. I know, I can't believe it's been this long either. It's so unlikely. Nikki, oh, I'm reading all your comments here. Thank you so much. Oh, you were divinely led. That makes me feel great. I feel that about so many things in my life lately, so I'm happy to be that person. Thank you so much. Valerie, TGIF, that's right. You are happily hooking alone tonight. Well, that can be a good thing, can't it? Not quite alone. We're right here. Great to see you, Anne. Thank you for what you do. I look forward to the next 5 years. Thank you so much, Anne. I do too. Really look forward. Naomi, you're right there. Good to see you. Thank you. Oh. All right, I won't read all of them out because you'll get nauseated. It's a lot of congratulations. I'm reading them all, and they're going right into my heart, right? They're soaking right in. Fantastic 5 Black Threads Studio Stitching Cafe. Fantastic 5, so happy to meet you. Oh, I'm so happy that you're there too. It is dreary and cold. This is the worst time in the winter, and you know what? I'm going to start the conversation off with that in just a second. Denise, you're 70 here. I am in Florida. You're at 70 degrees. Holy mackerel. I'm so jealous. That is like the golden temperature. Sharon, I'm sorry. Congratulations. Loved it. Oh, it's Sharon. You've been so constant since you found it. I'm so happy that you found it too. I'm very happy that you're there. Ruth, I caught that one. It's so appreciated that you are so inclusive. Thank you. Thank you so much. Veronica says, congratulations on 5 years. I'm watching you from my last day of vacation. I need to start rug cooking again. Well, it sounds like you're having a nice break right now. And when you come back, hopefully you're all fired up with a project that you have in mind or something. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing your next projects, hopefully on cocktail time. We got to plan the next cocktail time too. Oh, Ruth, you have lots of snow there. Oh my gosh, thank you. Well, thank you to everybody. Joyce, welcome. Happy Friday night. Great to see you. And thank you. I'm just going to take one more sip. All right, wet my whistle. I'm just thinking, let's get into the content. And I might not get to all of the slides today, but I figure this is a night that I'm not reading off notes and I haven't cued myself. Everything is already embedded into my dashboard. That's what I did all day, was put slides in and sort of annotate stuff. So we're just here to have fun and talk and remember. And just so you know, if you have a favorite episode, I would love to know that. Even if I use it for a future episode, if you have a favorite video or a favorite episode, I would love to know that. Because I have forgotten. I just completely forgot everything that I've done in the last 5 years. Like, not literally, but in terms of, it was just so much volume. And you know those times in your life when you have to do something, like whether it's like a short-term project or it's like a very long-term project or something. overwhelming or something sad, or just something busy and frantic and frenetic, you know how sometimes you do it because you have to do it, and then afterwards you think, man, I could never do that again. I was like sleepwalking, like in a crazy way for a really long time. That's how I felt today when I was looking at all those videos. I thought, how did I produce this much content in this time, particularly at the beginning? Now, it is a super bleak and kind of miserable time of the year, to be honest. Let's be honest. Gail, probably not for you in Australia, but here it's the roughest time of the year. And I think that is the reason that I started at this time of year, because if I remember back, and honestly, it's an awful blur, because it was so busy and so stressful for so much of it. And I have definitely turned a corner now, thank goodness, but it was a lot of paying dues for a long time. I feel like in 2020, you know, I made a New Year's resolution on New Year's Eve to myself that, you know, I wanted to start something and do something that was kind of my own again, because I had not, you know, I was working as a tour guide, and then I got married, and then I had kids, and the kids were getting a little bit older. And in 2020, they were both getting dropped off somewhere for school. Joss was in like nursery school, and Teddy was, I think, in kindergarten. And I thought it's definitely time that I could think about doing something for myself again. But, you know, I had come out of theater school, so not that. That's not really conducive to family life and having young kids. And then I was a tour guide, and again, that's not going to work because I used to travel like, you know, 40 weeks of the year. And I had been rug hooking, you know, and I thought, well, maybe this. And I remember making that resolution, and then on January 1st, putting up the Facebook page, which was called, I think it was called New England Rug Hooking Club. And within like a week or so, so many people had joined. Like, it was in the hundreds. It wasn't like in the millions or anything like that. It's still not. There's not that many of us. But so many people had joined that a lot of people were sending messages saying, well, I'm in New Jersey, or I'm in Pennsylvania, or I'm in California, and can I still join? And I thought, okay, it's too regional. So then I took off the of New England, and then people were saying, well, I'm punch needlers. Now this comes to that conversation of, 20th century conversations about certifications, and to this day, people saying, do we really consider punch needle rug hookers? Yes, we do. But, you know, even 5 years ago, it was kind of dicey. So I thought, well, immediately, I wasn't a punch needle person. I was a hooker. But I thought, you know what, let's immediately change the language again. So then it immediately changed again. It changed like 4 times in 1 month to rug hooking and punch needle club. And then I added a couple other things because people said, could it also be felting? Could it also be this? And I ended up taking those things off the end and putting it back the way it is now, as a club. For people who do rug making. And God, I wish the language was better so that more people felt like they could approach and be inspired and learn. And I wish that more people right out of the gate understood that we are not making huge rugs, but more tapestries for the most part. So that happened. That happened on January 1st. But today is only, what is it? January 10th. Today is only January 10th. That means that 10 days later, I set up a YouTube channel. Like, what was I doing? I mean, honestly, what was I doing? I was still learning myself. And in retrospect, I really believe, right? I was still learning myself. So I screwed things up on air all the time. But I figured it out when I did it, or when someone in the thread would say, you know, I think you're doing this and that's not going to work. That happened all the time in those early days. And I stuck with it because I thought, well, I'm actually learning too, so this is really helpful. And as time went on, you know, I got used to those kinds of conversations, and I wasn't, I think I wasn't embarrassed or upset when people who know more than me would tell me something that's always helpful, and it's usually coming from the right place. And after a while, I realized that I was getting a lot of followers because there were a lot of beginners coming and watching me because it was easier to I think watch me because I was brand new and I was making the same mistakes that they were making at the same time. You know how if you try to learn a second language, it's actually easier to talk to someone who is also speaking it as a second language, it's the same principle. So I think it worked really well in those early days, right? There were a few embarrassing moments. I'll admit it. For sure, there was probably lots, but I can't remember what they were anymore. So yeah, we pushed through that hardest time, and then COVID came in 2020, as we all know. And I felt very happy and lucky to be there, to be able to keep this part of my life going, and knowing that there were so many people out there who were doing the same thing and struggling the same way. And it gave us an outlet to keep going, right? The whole world was shutting down, like the lights were just going down everywhere, literally, right? And metaphorically. And we were able to keep doing what we were doing. And it was a weird kind of twilight, wasn't it? It was like Brigadoon. It was like a parallel universe. While everything else is going to hell, we kept logging on in those days 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. During that COVID time, I was on 5 days a week, if you remember. And we just did our thing and kept that going. And that one huge, it wasn't little, that one huge part of life remained the same. And for me, that was very helpful. And I was very grateful during that time that you were there. Let me catch up one more time. Judy, good to see you. Oh, thank you so much. You're an inspiration and brought me back to rug cooking. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad when I hear things like that, just knowing that, like, one person will say to me, like at a speech or whatever, at a talk or a guild or whatever, that they came back to rug cooking because of me. And I always think in those moments, it was all worth it. Like, honestly, it was all worth it, just so that one person, and I know it's a lot more than one, but just so that one person was able to find their way back to something that they really love, it's all worth it. I'm really glad that I did it and I spent the time on it. Catching up. It is 37 here, which is 100 in America. That's warm. Gail, that's really warm. Oh, Karen says, I love the episodes that were about rug cooking history, styles, as well as rug cooking artists. I know there were a lot. They were a lot of work, but I learned so much from those episodes. They were. Let's talk about that during the show. We did just about every rug hooking sort of school mission, like artist. We did so much heavy content in those early days. I kind of hit a wall at a certain point because there were no more missions that I wasn't covering, or big projects that I wasn't covering. And then it became a question of trying to seek out new books or books that had slipped through the cracks that were sort of rare. And I covered all of those that I have. And now, I did like sort of the lion's share at the beginning. Now it's a lot harder to find content, but we always do. We always do. But I would love to do more of those heavy history episodes too, where the whole thing is underscored in rug hooking history. And we often kind of figure out a way to do that by looking at older rugs or revisiting some of our favorite books. But Karen, those are my favorites too. These really are my favorites always. Let's see, I'm just catching up. Honestly, watching someone else work through the mistakes is a great encouragement. Yeah, it's true, isn't it, Judy? It's really true. There's something about, I've been a student so many times, and I love being a student. I love learning new stuff. There's something about having someone teach you, and you feel like it's scripted because they've said it so many times. And in those situations, I have felt like, obviously no particulars, but sometimes I feel like if the teacher has been teaching for a really, really long time, sometimes they forget to say some of the things that are the most intuitive or obvious, but they're not obvious to someone who's a beginner, right? You totally do the thing and you're like, oh, Jesus, I should have had a V8. But when you're new, you just made that mistake and you think, I know exactly what you mean. Somebody's got to say this out loud right now because you're totally going to do the thing, right? Because that's the thing about being on the same page. And I try to be so careful when I'm teaching to remember that, because that was hard for me at the beginning, to be learning and taking classes here and there with people who were like, it wasn't just that it wasn't beginner. It just, a lot of things went without being said. And I'm pretty literal. So I kind of need everything to be said. And in return, I like to try to say everything back. Thank you, Wendy. Great to see you. And let me just catch up. Melanie, your favorite episodes was the Riddermere catalog. I remember that. I did that upstairs in Jocelyn's room. That was a few episodes, I think. Going through those Riddermere catalogs was so interesting because those aren't first year, so we won't look at those tonight. But those episodes, Riddermere was a company that was in Canada for decades, and I think they just shut their doors like definitely in the last few years. It was not that long ago. But the work of the Riddermere company spanned decades, so it went from sort of the mid-century and really traditional basket compositions, flower compositions, what one would expect, in those years. But they really struck out more than anybody else at that time and did some wacky stuff, really wacky stuff. They went full blast kind of pictorial, ethnic, modern, abstract. They hit into a lot of places where no rug hooking companies had been yet. So Riddermere remains a really interesting company. In the timeline of rug hooking, they, in my mind, will remain one of the most interesting stories because whatever gave them the nerve, right, the gumption to start turning really avant-garde compositions, pictures, artwork into rug designs is sort of mystifying. It's unlikely because they're all unlikely cells. And I think with Riddermere, as far as what I've seen hit the marketplace, the ones I see most often are not the avant-garde ones. But the fact that they continue to put out so many really wackety-stackety patterns is like they were very committed to doing something that was very different. Those were great episodes. Thank you so much for remembering. Those were really great episodes. Let me come back one more time. I'm going to be reading, I think, from the thread a lot tonight, which is great. Wendy said, I bought the big book by Mary Shepard Burton because of your excellent book review. And I'm not even going to ask because I know that you weren't disappointed. That is one of the great rug hooking books of all time. That was absolutely amazing. I have an extra copy of that if it's, I don't know how scarce it is right now. Nikki says, I have a favorite episode, August 28th, 2022, rug hooking. How does it hook? Oh, yeah, that's right. 15 different patterned wools. I love the song with the a spear, a spike, a point, a nail. I was thinking that was my recorded version of that song. It's The Waters of March. Thank you. I love that episode too. It was very tricky to make that fit in terms of like the speed. I love that episode because that was a recorded video. I did take all of those different wools that were patterned wools like herringbones and checks and big window panes, all kinds of different patterns. And you really don't know how they're going to come up on your backing until you start hooking. And that's why I always say when you have got something that is not as solid, even if you've got a multicolor, you might want to just test it before you cut it all up and go for the gold, because it's not going to hook the way that you think. So in that video I hooked, it was 16, Nikki? Yep, and it was like a square. It was really pretty. I wonder if I still have that thing. But yeah, the way that they came up was really surprising in some cases. And just a gentle reminder that you really do need to test to avoid disappointment, right? Hooking a whole background and then going, this is never going to work, right? I still do that too. I just did it on the last piece I was working on. The one for the cover of Magpie, I just did it on that one. Yeah, so it's like do as I say, not as I do. But thank you. I love that video as well. Karen says you found and bought the Riddermere tree pattern. That was, I know exactly the one you mean. That is one of the more sort of abstract-y, modernist ones. Very cool. Ryan, good to see you. Happy anniversary. Groovy 70s puzzle and soda tonight. That sounds like fun. Peace and love to you too. Black Thread Studios Stitching Cafe says, I love the history as well. Shetty Comp, my favorite so far. Never happier than when you break into song. It's always so tempting. Everything reminds me of a great song. So let's start looking at some of these episodes, and definitely jump in whenever you want. We're never going to get through this program tonight, but I thought maybe this week on Coffee Time, we could look at some more of the episodes. And, I'm only looking at the very beginning because, as I say, I had 1,000 videos like a year ago, so I can't imagine how many are on there now. But let's talk a little bit about the beginning videos and what those are like, because it was a very different format when we started. And and let me see what I started with. Hang on. I think I might have started with my personal favorite. I don't know if it was my all-time favorite episode. I'm going to come back. No, I won't because I've got it set up here. I don't know if it was my all-time favorite episode, but it was. Oh, no, wait a minute. That's not it. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. It didn't get in there. Dang it. This is it. This is the one that makes me laugh the hardest. So this was the first Halloween episode that I did. Mom, do you remember this night at your dining room table? I was dressed as kind of a fortune teller. I had on a gold lame turban and a lot of makeup and a giant pin and like a lame shirt that felt like sandpaper and was absolutely miserable to wear. But this episode cracks me up so much because I was joined at the table by my mom, dressed like this, and it remains in my mind on this evening while you remember that, Cece, while we were running the show, I had my phone down on the table, and I think this was a bingo night, right? And we'll talk about that too. This was a bingo night, and I had my phone down on the table, and a message popped up, and I saw that my sister had taken a screenshot of me and my mom here, and the message just flashed in front of me and said something like, "What is going on over there? What is going on?" It was such a funny night, and one of the most uncomfortable Halloween costumes I've worn on the show. Now, this is the first episode ever. This is 2022. You know, you can't see the date on YouTube just by scrolling. It says episode number 1, and it is episode number 1. I remember this day very well. I wonder if you remember too. On this day, I think it was right before I started the episode. This is one of the reasons I am amazed that I hung on for as long as I have. If you were there for the first episode, do you remember that, I have not grown technologically, that's for sure. I still have no idea what I'm doing. I just know how to do this. Anything new technical you give me, I'm going to cry blood because it's so difficult for me. I turned everything on the way, I watched YouTube videos to tell me how to turn everything on. And then I put everything on, but I wasn't live. I didn't think I was live. And I walked through the room in super tight jeans with a bra on and no shirt because I have a closet of clothes in the room where I was recording this. And I walked right through with a giant muffin top and my bra, like my boobs, and I didn't know it. And I was fussing in the closet on camera, and it was visible to people who opened the live show early before it was meant to start, because I didn't know that I had started it. How I got over that, I will never know. I think I ran the show not knowing that, and then a few people wrote me at night and said, "I don't want to freak you out, but this is what happened." And I freaked out. I really freaked out. And I thought, it's like, this has not happened to me, but I've noticed it's happened to other people. It could happen to me any day. If someone like farts in yoga class, they just like don't come anymore. So it was that kind of a thing. I thought, well, I can't go anymore. Like it was one episode. It was fun, and now it is all done. But I kind of cried myself crazy and insane, and I ended up running a show the next morning. I don't know how I did it. It was incredible. But the reason, I was very glad to know it. You remember that, Mom. It was absolutely crazy. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Joss has grown so much, Nikki, from when she was a little ant like that, right? Holy mackerel. And she, in those days, Joss, are you in there?
No, she isn't.
I wonder if she'll come and make a guest appearance. She never likes to make guest appearances anymore. I used to love it so much when she did. Wrong show. Sorry, hang on. So she was a little speck of cuteness. She's still a speck of cuteness. But this was our first show, and I think we ran for half an hour in those days. And in those days, no, that's okay. I knew what you meant. In those days, I was thinking of the show in terms of format as like a news show, a short news show where I would say like, okay, well, this is what I found, or I happened to see this, or I went to this show, or I noticed this online. I thought this was interesting. And I was going to keep it in, things can only go up from there. That's right, Sharon. I didn't know how to format it, but yes, that is Jam Sandwich. That was one of that's Jocelyn's design, and I hooked it with sock yarn, and I framed it in a video. I think I did it with a video, using a yardstick, a colorful yardstick, and just I mounted it onto a piece of just wood or cardboard, and then I nailed. It must have been wood or plywood. I nailed a yardstick flat, the flat way, all the way around, almost like a log cabin, so that it didn't kind of overlap. And this is Jam Sandwich, and I think at this moment somebody had written a poem about Jam Sandwich. Seeing this piece or seeing the video where I was working on this piece, and it was such a cool poem. It was, I would have to pull it up again. It would be hard to find, but it was like Jam Sandwich. It was like it had a 1920s vibe. Jam Sandwich, going to the speakeasy, wants to have a cocktail, listening to jazz music. And it went on, and it was so cool. And I just thought, man, that's awesome. And I remember I read it. I don't know if that's what I'm doing here. But in this episode, like all of those early episodes, I ran for half an hour, 5 days a week. And it was Jam Sam. It was exhausting. So this is the same episode I was showing Jam Sandwich. I did about 20 things during the course of this episode. I had the weekend before gone and taken a natural dyeing class, and I had dyed a bunch of yarn with flowers and things like that, and natural pigments. And I was talking about that in great detail in this first episode, because I had written down during the class, how you can get the sort of sad colors versus glad colors depending on what you add to your color. Do you want to use iron, or there are all of these things about natural dyeing that are very different than using aniline dyes. So I included that in this first episode, and it just was exhausting. I think this was the next day or 2 days later. I had dyed a bunch of yarn, and I was talking about the colors of yarn. I mean, these were jam sandwich packed episodes, and each one, I would talk about Grenfell and natural dyeing and Rug Hooking Magazine all in the same episode. And it was absolutely overwhelming. You can see in this photo, I had just done the video with the pumpkins. What do I call those? The sugar skull pumpkins. I was talking about that. I was talking about how to finish them with the rod, that wooden thing, the bobbin. And on the left, you can see I've been dyeing a bunch of stuff, and I've also got some paisley on deck. So in those days, the show, same episode, but I had dyed a bunch of yarn too. So you can imagine how busy I was during the day. The thing about this time was that I wasn't really making any sales yet. I didn't have the website. I wasn't really selling anything. I was selling one kit a month. One design, and so I had the time. Didn't really have the money to be buying stuff and doing this, but like divine, divine will or destiny or serendipity or whatever you want to call it. Something was making me, log on, especially after the boobs incident, log on, run these shows. And then log off and take the time to dye and find stuff to talk about and make stuff to talk about. Something was making me do it, right? Because it was exhausting, and I did it for a really long time. Barbara says, how many people listening are headed back to episode 1? Yeah, I don't have high hopes that those episodes are the best, but they're probably funny. And they are loaded with content. I'm curious too, but I would probably cringe watching these early ones. This is September 30th, which is Jocelyn's birthday. You can see she looks really happy here. So in this episode, we talked about dyeing and swatches, and I was working on my Lizzie Borden pattern. So I was talking about hooking that, and I had dyed some colors for it. And you can see Jocelyn was helping me out in this episode. Remember, the kids were home then too, because it was COVID, or it was about to be COVID, or maybe it was probably just starting COVID. And they were home. So the kids were in a lot of these early episodes for that reason. Autumn inspirations. So this was the first episode. This is like the same week or a week later. This is when I start talking about, in this picture, I had found a thrift store painting at Goodwill. And I was thinking about the composition of like a mat within a mat, like a placemat within a placemat. I thought, oh, what an interesting idea for a still life. and I was talking about the painting and giving some composition ideas. I might have been drawing. I don't remember the episode that well, but I think this is the first episode that I noticed. I was giving you fall hooking project ideas from nature, real specific. And I started talking about Pearl McGowan because I was ferociously reading my Pearl McGowan books. So it was that soon that I started talking about Pearl and the other early sort of pioneers of rug hooking. On October 6th, we were looking at needlepoint as inspiration. And I remember this episode as well because I went down to the basement. I've been collecting needlepoint for years, but I'm very specific about what I like and what I want. These are screenshots, incidentally, just so you know. I took screenshots with my phone because it's so much, it's so many. But, I went through my old needlepoints and I was thinking, apples to apples, textile to textile. So in this episode, I think we're talking about how to translate needlepoint, cross stitch, and other kinds of needle crafts, arts and crafts, to be rug hooking designs. So that was an early crossover episode. Melissa says, loved Lizzie Borden and the sisters. That's right, the Fox sisters. Also the woman who had the patchwork house. The woman who, yes, you did a pattern of her house that looked like patchwork. Yes. Gosh, what was her name? I'm such a jerk. I did do a video or at least a post. I might have done a video at her house. And I really wanted to do a lot with her. I started putting a lot of her stuff into the store. And I spent a lot of time tracing patterns and starting to get her stuff in the store and tons of stuff ready to be in the store. And then she started having second thoughts about, because other people owned some of the pieces, and she started to worry that they would be upset that other people were making the same pattern. And it sadly became, because she's such a Joanne, I think her name was Joanne. She had so many great patterns, and I really wanted to share them. But obviously I respected her, where she was coming from, that she just wasn't sure how people would feel about rugs she had given away, and she'd basically given all of them away. But hers, that was one of hers, I think. And I ended up discontinuing them from the store because it was very hard going back and forth and figuring out which ones were okay and which ones weren't. And I felt like I kept misunderstanding, and I felt like it was frustrating, more for her than for me. But it was very time consuming for me to be wrong, So that was a great pattern. I wish we could have done more with her work because she was doing all of her own original designs, and they were so cool. That was probably this year, maybe the following year. But yeah, that was a very cool pattern. Here, let me find out. I have hundreds of slides in this show. Let me find out where we are next. October 6th. So I'm skipping 90% of them, right? There's like 5 a week. So on October 6th, we started looking at books like Needlepoint Inspiration and American Hooked Rugs. But we started looking at books because I thought, oh, wait a minute, this is a great idea to put people on to these existing texts where there will be inspiration and instruction, depending on what you pick up. And as you know, since then, I have done a ton of books and continue to do, I don't want to say reviews because I never say negative things about anything that we're looking at. And I hope I don't mislead you either. It's just a question of if I pick up a book and I say, like, here it is. This is the book. It's my sketchbook. This book is great if you're a beginner because there's a lot of how-to illustration. And, it doesn't have as much in terms of patterns as it has instruction, right? So that would be the way that I would give a book review. I would never say like, very light on the creativity. There's hardly any patterns. I would never say that. I don't even come close to saying that ever. And that's been the way the book reviews always are. So I hope that historically you've been able to read through the lines, between the lines, and know which books are for you and which books are not for you. Becky says, can't tell you how many books I went and hunted down after coffee time. My rug hooking book collection is pretty big now. Well, it's so great to have it, isn't it? It's so great to be a collector of a certain subject of books. You feel like an expert on your subject, and you are. At this point, you absolutely are. It's great to have those. I hope you feel the same way. I have a ton, and I have lots of doubles too. So I bring them with me often when I'm teaching or speaking in case, and sometimes I just put them down for people to take because I've got so much of everything, it's all history. The catalogs, the books, it's all our history, and it's fun to have it all documented. It's fun to have a nice fluffy shelf of books that can both give you inspiration and bring you back to a moment in time, right? This craft all makes sense when you look through the whole thing from beginning to end, and you go, okay, that's how they started out, and then people in general, I don't mean they, like this anonymous body of people, and then trends shifted, and pendulums swung, and things were done differently, and it goes on, and it's all recorded. And if you have all these great books, it's all on your shelf, and you can return to it whenever you want. Coffee Time and Early October, American Rugs in Britain, and Introducing October Owl. That pattern became known as Moonlight Becomes You. It was an owl on a branch. And I did, I can see that, Jocelyn. Yeah, right. Oh, and her picture in the background, too. And I remember in this episode, that rug behind me, I had just found that. Oh, that's okay. I had just found that in Rhode Island, at the Rhode Island Antiques Mall, I think it's called. I think it's in Woonsocket. But I had just found that rug with those weird red scrolls, and I think it was like $65. So it wasn't like a bank breaker of a rug for me at that time. It kind of was, but it was so unusual because it was not a commercial pattern, and the scrolls are so tiny, right? They almost look like fetus scrolls, like they're real, like little prawns. It's so unusual. I was so happy to have that rug. I had brought back, you can see the ring with the natural yarns. I had brought back the ring for more conversations. So during this time, we're into autumn of 2020 here, and I've been at it since January. And I'm still doing quite a few different topics in one episode. I still have it in my head that let's do this like a news thing, like a broadcast. So natural dyes, rug hooking with recycled sweaters. So in this episode, I think it was the first time I was talking about cutting up sweaters and hooking with them. And during the winter of 2020, if you remember back, or if you go back, I did a lot with hooking with sweaters. I was just taking sweaters off that didn't fit or that had clothes, and I was just taking out a pair of fabric scissors and just cutting them to ribbons and hooking with them. And I did a lot of stuff with sweaters that winter. I really enjoyed hooking with sweaters. I bumped into someone who I already knew, and she had like hundreds and hundreds of sweaters, and I bought 100 sweaters from her. And I was able to put kits together that year. I had 3 different designs for sweater kits, if you remember those. Had to discontinue those because it's too difficult to keep finding wool sweaters in the numbers that people would ideally order them. That was also the year, do you remember, I put out a huge stack, like 50 or 60 charm squares of different wool sweaters. At one point, there were no repeats. Like, it was crazy. It was from that big haul that I got from that woman. And all of those went. I wish I would have held on to a couple of the charm squares myself because I would love to use them. It's just impossible to do that now. I'm seeing less and less sweaters just 5 years later. And, when I think about it, I think one of the reasons that these early shows were so frantically and self-consciously busy and jam-packed was because this was the era also that I was new, and I joined like every guild. I was trying to make the rounds, and I was trying to make friends. I had started the channel. I thought I was being helpful, and in a lot of circles, it was not perceived as helpful. It was perceived as, she's an amateur. She doesn't know what she's doing. Why is she on? Why does she want to come here with her group of people? We come here. Why does she want to come here on that day? Why can't she find her own space? Like that kind of thing. And a lot of people were saying stuff like, yeah, I tried to watch your show, but I turned it on, and it took you so long to say hello to everybody that like I just got impatient and turned it off. And you remember I talked about this quite a bit back then because I just couldn't find my legs. I just was so wobbly, and I didn't know if I should change the format of the show. There was a very short time, if you remember, that I logged on and I said, hey, great to see everybody, and I would read the comments later, but I would not give shout outs and say hi. I would not act like we're a community, right? I just was like doing a newscast. And that was a direct result of people saying that to me in like guild situations. And then, I finally came around to a huge screw it. And I said, I'm doing this for free. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it in a way that's comfortable. My favorite part of the show is chatting with people and in having people interact with me. I'm not running a free show just to give endless amounts of time and knowledge and tips and whatever, to not have fun myself. That would make no sense. So, but this was that era, right? This was absolutely that era. We talked about this all the time back then. You've not lost an ounce of steam. Thanks, Nikki. Leah says, good riddance to those people. Absolutely. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent. That's absolutely true. My Aunt Joan used to have this saying, I'm going to have to hook it into a rug. She used to always say when she did something awful, she would say, people with inner dignity are never embarrassed. I think about that all the time. I still think about that all the time when I feel embarrassed. I just, boom, that's the first thing that goes into my head, and it helps a ton. Same exact sentiment. So, yeah, so just taking you down memory lane, because we had these conversations together at that time. And, a lot of people, everybody who was logged on at that time said, don't change the format. We log on because we want to chat. We want to feel like we're part of something. It's 2020, right? So, yeah, so after a few months, I got back to doing it the way I always meant to do it in the first place. Hooking with old sweaters, what's working, and Nancy Thomas. Nancy Thomas was another brand that I absorbed into ribbon candy hooking for a while. And, there were a few brands. If sometimes people say, what happened to those patterns? There was a few brands. I got very excited about like multiplying the size of my store by making contracts and deals with other brands. So I would bring in every case, it was like fine artists, right, who didn't have their work in any other rug hooking in fiber form or with any other company. And I was making deals with people, but there were quite a few deals at one time, and I thought, this is great because it multiplies the amount of stuff I have to sell, because I was just starting out, but also, it's different styles, right? I don't like it when it's like me, and more me, and how about some more me? So I liked it that there were lots of different styles in the store, but everything that I had planned, in general, I'm not like picking out Nancy Thomas in particular, but I had made deals like, okay, I will advertise your stuff on social media and be constantly talking about your brand and driving people to your other products, or your store, or whatever. And nobody ever reciprocated that. Nobody ever returned the favor, to be totally blunt and inappropriate on live stream. But I got triggered at a certain point, and I just pulled all of the other brands out of the store because I thought, man, I've been saying the names of other people's businesses for a really long time. I would really appreciate it if somebody would once or twice say mine. So if you're wondering how all of that stuff transpired, that's exactly how it went down. Judy says, I think some of those snobby people may have ended up in a certain murder. Judy, so true. They absolutely were in the Murder at Peppermint Manor, the rug hooking jigsaw mystery puzzle that I put out this past year. You can still find it in the shop. It was a murder mystery, and there were a lot of stereotypes and caricatures in there. And yes, most of them were pulled directly, and some of the conversations were pulled directly from some of the guild meetings. My antennas were always up. I was always sweating it out at those guild meetings because I knew that people were talking about me. And then people would tell me that people were talking about me. And I always felt uncomfortable, but I felt like I had to, inner dignity, that I had to keep going, or it was like House of Cards, and I did keep going. But man, some stressful moments there. Mom says, you gotta be you, baby, and that means full on love to everyone. Thanks, Mom. Yeah, I do. I just kept pushing, and again, who knows why, but yeah, you have to be true to yourself. Thank you, Sharon. I try. Nikki says the cameos from Peppermint are the absolute best. Thank you so much. Mandy hooked all of those. I drew everything. Mandy hooked everything. That's how it goes with Mandy and I. She is like, she hooks my stuff. I draw it. She doesn't like designing. She takes it over and she does stuff in the craziest detail. She is so good. She just hooked and sent me the banner for the upcoming Magpie Times Busy Bees, and it is absolutely beautiful. You'll see that soon. And yesterday I designed the banner for the next issue of Magpie. So the next one is Busy Bees, right? And the deadline is February 1st. So anything to do with spring and bees, make sure you're sending that in to me. We definitely need content. But the episode after that, I'm sorry, the issue after that, the summer issue will be wish you were here holiday postcards or vacation postcards. So just so you know, I'm working that far ahead with that stuff, and Mandy's getting that stuff too. And now I'm the president of Tigger. That's right. Mwah. Don't get me going, Ruth. I don't need much to get going. Very proud of that, I have to say. February 1st. Yeah, ideally. I want to give Judy tons of time to be able to assimilate all of that great content. So, yeah, but be sending spring stuff, not just bee stuff. We definitely need content. I feel like we're short. It might be that I'm about to get slammed and I don't know it, but definitely be thinking about Magpie because we want you. Picture that Uncle Sam poster. We want you. All right, I'm just looking for where we are. There we are. Let's see. Coffee time, still in October, looking at primitive designs, hooking, rug sweaters. Heather Ritchie, the British artist, right? She was a big part of Tigger. She had already passed away. And I think in this episode, we were looking at her amazing book. She was a big part of Tigger. She hosted it the last time it was in the UK. It was a much smaller group, I think something like, I don't know, between 50 and 100. And they were coming in and out of little British pubs and little storefronts and running up and down cobble streets and having to do everything in turns and a kind of rotation because everything was very small scaled, but it was in her small village. Reeth, right? Wasn't she from Reeth? Man, that just came to me like I was possessed. But yeah, some of these were great episodes where we were discovering together. I was ordering books like I was a millionaire. We were discovering some of the great rug hookers who had come before, who had already, passed, but whose work has got to be eternal. And we really started talking about their work in these episodes. In this episode, we started talking about Amy Oxford. I'm going to keep going here. I think this was the first one where I figured out a Friendsgiving episode. It was either on Thanksgiving. Yeah, I think it was on Thanksgiving. I figured out the green screen for the first time, right? It's kind of gone downhill since then. Something has gone wrong with the green screen. Veronica, thank you for that sweet comment. You just have to be yourself and not worry about what others say. I learned to rug hook during the pandemic watching you. Oh, that's awesome. Veronica, thank you. We all have to be ourselves, right? We all have to do our own drummer thing. Otherwise, nobody can live for very long being an imposter, right? Inside their own body. That's not fair. Everybody's got to be who they are. Yeah, and I figured that out. It just took me some time. I so wanted to keep doing this, and I so worried I wouldn't be able to because of so much opposition. But yeah, this was a great Friendsgiving pop-up. This was an unplanned episode. I feel like this was more recently. It's not the best photo of me either. I don't think this is our first year because look at my hair. It's really long. I'm going to get that one off. That one came up wrong in the chronology. This is more like it. This is that season again. Rug hooking with recycled sweaters, how to repurpose, prep, chop shop. And this is when I launched into that sweater segment that lasted about 4 months where I was really, laying into the angle of the craft that is thrifting and recycling and repurposing and all of that green stuff. And I was really hitting it hard with lots of live videos and recorded videos about how to cut up sweaters and things that you found in thrift stores. This was the era of things being shut, everybody wearing masks. If anything was open, there wasn't as much shopping during this time in person. And a lot of people were ordering stuff like from eBay, like used stuff, but people typically were not shopping. So it was fun to talk about cutting up old stuff. In a way, it was cathartic to just hack up a bunch of old clothing. It was a way to burn off a lot of steam, I think, at that moment in time as well. October 22nd. So here we are getting into more, I was talking about tavern signs. This whole episode was about tavern signs, symbolism, and motifs in rug hooking. And use, in hooked rugs that were tavern signs. Now, what was the book? It was a husband and wife team that I used in this episode. Oh, it's going to come to me. It was about hooking tavern signs. And I remember it is an amazing book. I have at least one copy of it. Cece, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I kept going too. Thank you. I am super committed to being inclusive. That is at the absolute top of the list. And I hope you noticed, switching gears for a minute, I don't know if you noticed on YouTube or on Facebook, I'm so thirsty. I mean, not necessarily for beer, it's what's sitting in front of me. Lots of calories. I posted that video about Tigger because a lot of people were asking questions about Tigger, and it was taking a lot of time to answer people individually. So I thought, why don't I just I was very reluctant to do a big informational video like I did yesterday because I thought I don't want to give too much away, but I don't want to keep secrets because people who are familiar with the organization will say, well, what about this and what about that? So I thought, you know what, just do it. Just do it. Everything I said in the video, I am committed to and determined to do. But I did address in the video the idea of being more inclusive in a different way, because the thing that a lot of people were saying on the Tigger posts in general is that, kind of like I've heard, it's hard to get in. It's not hard to get in as a member. Anybody can get in as a member. But, the thing with Tigger, and this is a detour. This is a little detour. And again, I am the president of Tigger now, so this is very relevant. Teddy, I'm recording a show. Make sure he doesn't say something crazy. People in general think, as with solder and ATHA as well, I didn't get the class I wanted, and it's very disappointing for some people because depending on where you're traveling from, depending on your age, depending on your health, you're thinking, God, this might have been my chance. Come on, I really want that class. And it's more than disappointing for some people, and I get it. So we are asking teachers with the next Tigger to rerun classes, to run classes more than once. That's to start. And I'm starting a new kind of class that is a hybrid kind of a class where you are actually not in the classroom. You're with me at the beginning of the day, and you're given a pattern and your supplies and the sort of an assignment, right? You need to complete the pattern, but there are some missing parts like inspiration, or you have to add a motif here or there or something, and your pattern, and essentially you buy that class. I send you off in the morning. You take the trolley, or you walk to one of the Gilded Age mansions, or to the old cemetery, or whatever. I know already 2 of the classes I'm teaching, but I'm going to hold on divulging that kind of stuff probably for a couple of years. But it will be a hybrid class that allows people to take a lot of classes that they can do right now, or they could do like after. You don't need me to do it. And it also includes like a ticket to do an excursion. So you're doing 2 things at once. You're sightseeing at the destination, and you're doing a pattern that has something to do with, in this case, Newport, that functions as a souvenir, and you're learning while you do it. So it's a new kind of class that has not been run at any of the conventions. But I think it's another great idea specifically for experienced hookers to be able to feel like, I want to go, but I want to hang out with my friends, and I want to see the place, but I also don't want to miss the hooking. Like I want to buy stuff, I want to have stuff, I want to bring stuff home. It's a way that solves all those problems at once. So, my main thought in entering Tigger and bringing it like to its next stage of being, and ensuring the legacy of the organization, making it much more familiar to you because it is the only one that is an international organization. It's important for me that we are inclusive in terms of as many people as possible can take classes, can see classes, can be part of Tigger, even if they can't be at the Tigger live event. So we're coming up with all kinds of solutions to those problems. Technology is changing, right? So we have more options than past Tigger boards have had. And in this case, I also mentioned in the video that, ideally we would have opened membership on January 1st, but Tigger has become so large that I absolutely had to incorporate it. There's no way I'm taking like the kitty from the last Tigger event into my bank account. Like that's not happening. So we're so large now as an organization that we have to, in this case, incorporate, and I'm setting up a proper structure for it, which is going to take some time. So that means on the Tigger front, everybody's about to receive, before we can take membership, the first content. Colleen Tiefenthal has put together a beautiful pattern that will be the first content. It'll be a free pattern, a challenge for everybody, and there will be free content while we wait to transition into that legal space where we legally have all of the numbers we're supposed to have and a bank account associated with them. So just so you know, that just reminded me of all those things. How much does it cost to join? So Ruth, we have to decide that. So I don't want to say yet, but we have to decide that. Membership is for 3 years. So we need to talk about, I need to talk about that with the board members too, because historically it has been, I want to say 30, between 30 and $40, something like that for 3 years. But historically the board, the past Tiggers don't really provide a lot of content. They're just planning a party 3 years from now for the most part, whereas our board is going to be putting out constant content that is just for Tigger. So it's not going to go astronomical, but I think we do need to decide whether we want to do it yearly. Because I know if you join like in the 3rd year, you're thinking, oh, great, well, I've paid for the same amount for all 3 years. But then again, there's so much content out there, you would have access. Sorry, I need some lip chap. Really dry. You would have access to all of the content that came before. So we need to solve. It's not going to be astronomical, right? We're not going to hike it up at all. But we'll let you know as soon as possible. That's the next thing that we've got to say. Let me come over here again, and let's see. Nikki says to my mom, thank you for bringing this beautifully spirited, created ball of light into this world. We love her so. Oh, my mom's going to gobble that up. She's probably writing right now. She's going to write something long back to you. Thank you so much. She's so great, too. And Ryan says, I've learned so much from you on this channel and the community. First, sharing my rugs. That's right, your beauties. First time sharing, first time hanging in a gallery. First time being published, etc. Many thanks to you. Yeah, I always forget about that stuff too. Yeah, I mean, it's like, and still same stuff, right? We're still looking for stuff to be published and to share your stuff. And, Ribbon Candy Hooking doesn't, and Magpie Times doesn't. We're not jury publications and productions. I like to see everybody's stuff. I like to publish everybody's stuff. And Ryan, when you were a very beginner, your work happened to be like incredible and artistic. But not everybody's is. You were just amazing out of the gate. But I like to print all of it because everybody has feeling, their personality in their work. And you can see it, even if they're just starting, you can see it, right? Every piece that we look at has something so special about it. Every piece is worth remarking on. Every piece is worth sharing, seeing published, seeing out there so everybody can look at it and learn something. Or just enjoy it. Jessica says, congratulations. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Are you coming to, Denise says, are you coming to the Harbor Hooking Show in Punta Gorda? I haven't heard about it, and I haven't been contacted about it. So as it stands, no. I know of that show. I would love to. But I don't, nobody's contacted me yet. So as of now, no. But hopefully / maybe. That's a bad answer, isn't it? Dan says, great idea for offering a new format hybrid class with adventure, a mission, an assignment, and a souvenir. I think so. There needs to be more ways at these rug hooking conventions because there's way more people than teachers can accommodate. There's got to be more ways for people to be able to learn, take classes, take something away from them, and still manage to try to keep some bodies out of classrooms, particularly bodies who don't want to be there and would rather be out hitting it. You know what I mean? There has to be a way to do that really well. And we've got 3 years to figure it out. Awesome. Sounds doable. I think so. I think it's going to help a lot with numbers. What I really want to avoid is disappointment and people saying, God, I've been waiting, to have a class with this teacher. And now here's the teacher and there wasn't any room in the class. We're going to try really hard it will happen, but we're going to try to make sure that it happens very infrequently. And we are already pulling at naming and contacting teachers that you are going to love, right? There's going to be such great variety. Tammy, oh, thank you so much. I love how you teach us to think outside the box. Your videos teach me so much. Thank you so much. You're thinking outside the box. I'm enabling. That's all I'm doing is saying it's okay. Sometimes all you need is someone to say it's okay, right? Because you want to do it to begin with. You just need that person to flick the switch, and then you go, okay. And I'm so glad. And Leah says, I only began rug cooking in March, but so happy that I stumbled upon this group. The positivity and encouragement is a beautiful thing and is keeping my ADHD mind focused on the craft. So true, isn't it? So I feel you there. So true. And Leah, it's amazing that you just started in March because everything that you've produced so far, like Ryan, like is just fantastic. It's so original. So original and so stunning. Definitely interested in Tigger. Goretti, I'll put all of the information out ASAP, but we will be putting out free content in the meantime. We're not going to not put out content because we're fooling around with the government and trying to be issued a number. We're not going to hold content back for the group of people who are waiting because we've got to wait for the Secretary of the State, right? That's ridiculous. So we're just going to put out free content until we can set ourselves up legally, and then we will say, now you can join, right? Because you can cross my palm with silver in the best way, and you will get the best value when that happens too. This was the episode we were talking about earlier, October 26th, Mary Shepard Burton, her book, Storytelling, I think it was called, in Hooked Rugs. Absolutely beautiful book. This was, I remember we had that couch in the other room. Man, the animals and the kids trashed that couch. That was so pretty and new at that time. Didn't take long. What is this one? Wait a minute. I went too far down. This was a whole series, right? So this was the whole series of the Mary Shepard Burton. I think it was right around here. So it took me until the fall to realize we couldn't get everything done. Like Rome cannot be built in a day. I think I stopped doing episodes that were jam-packed with lots of little tidbits. And I just naturally went to a different format where we would talk about a subject for the whole day and really dig in. And sometimes the subject was so, extra large that it would stretch over a few episodes so that we weren't, doing it an injustice, particularly a book like Mary Shepard Burton's book. In this episode, Marion Sykes, Dorothy's Sauber. This must have been a different book. I wonder if you remember that. I don't remember that one. Right. Yeah, right. So, okay, nursery rhyme rugs, Garrett rugs. I wrote Bluefield. It's Blue Nose. That typo's been there for a long time. I should try to fix that. Now I know that it's there November 2nd. So some of these early episodes, right? I remember we were at this point in time talking about the Blue Nose rugs, the Garrett Blue Nose rugs. And we were reading that book about the woman who found the rugs in the basement, but most of the rugs had already been bought and were being, safely transferred onto backing and were already under the copyright of the person who bought them, but some new ones were found in this basement of the old Garrett Blue Nose building. This was the time that we were having that conversation because it was a little bit of a soap opera, that book and that whole story of chasing those last Blue Nose sketches and patterns. It was a bit of a Indiana Jones, kind of a plot. But I remember in this episode, we were specifically talking about Garrett Blue Nose rugs and nursery rhyme rugs, probably starting with the idea of the Garrett Blue Nose Three Bears. But I remember we talked about like Sunbonnet Sue and, some of the Mary, Mary, Quite Contrary, some of those early nursery rhyme rugs. So it was around this time that running the larger shows, right, with one subject rather than 10, it became possible for me to start researching quite a bit. So the work behind the scenes became, I think, even more. But I feel like the shows, it was a different format. I feel like they were better just because it was like watching a full movie rather than a preview. You know what I mean? It was not a sampler anymore. These episodes were really thorough. They were not so thorough that they were spoiler alerts. Because I always encourage you to if you're interested in the thing we're talking about, to buy the thing that we're talking about, to support other rug hookers and other writers. But yeah, that's right around this time here that we start looking at themes in rug hooking, schools of rug hooking. Yeah, this was the episode with the Blue Nose, with the Garrett Blue Nose. So if you mark this November of 2020, if you're interested in Blue Nose, this was the era that we talked about Blue Nose for like a month. Different aspects, different angles. We looked at different catalogs, old catalogs. And if you remember, the North American Rug Hooking Museum in Canada, in Nova Scotia, was putting together a book that came out since. It's the collected Garrett Blue Nose patterns. They were then already putting it together and we were talking about it. And then a couple years later it came out. It's been out for maybe a year and a half kind of thing. This is another example of one of those episodes that I thought was really great. This episode on November 10th, 2020 was about fine artists who were also rug hookers. And I had accumulated a list of fine artists like Marguerite Zorach, and a few others who both hooked rugs and did art, but were better known for fine art. And kind of like the point of the episode was like, oh, and did you know that this person also hooked rugs? So that was a fun one that required a lot of research. I think this is a continuation of that episode as well. But this was a lot of fun. And this kind of ushered in the era of doing pretty broad subjects in these episodes, like really sort of academic episodes that required a lot of research. Now, I still do these episodes as often as I can, but man, we hit it hard for a few years. It was like every episode was something that I had been researching, deep dives, exactly, Judy, that I'd been researching all day. This episode was Fine Artists Who Rug Hook, but specifically just Emily Carr, right? The Canadian icon, Emily Carr. Great rug hooker. And we were looking at her hooked rug, just her hooked rugs in this episode. Sure, we probably looked at some of her famous paintings too. But yeah, at this point, we were already doing the deep dives. That's a good one, Judy. And going into really thorough detail on who these names were, right? So we were adding lots of names in a short time to our bag of tricks, to our knowledge, to our to the sort of hat of all of the names that we pull out of them. I was just pulling out one name after another, and it was intense. This episode was about Molly Nye-Tobey. I had just discovered her. I think I was telling some stories about her because I had gotten in touch with the family. I was wanting to write a book about her. I still am, but unfortunately the biggest collection of Molly Nye-Tobey rugs that I found, somebody was going to sell to me, and then she sold them to someone else, which was not super helpful. Kind of set me back because it's very hard finding her rugs. But I had just gone to a family funeral in the Tobey family, and I had started talking with them. I had gone to Rhode Island, and a little bit awkward, but they invited me, so I showed up, and I was talking to the family a little bit, and I had a little bit more information and insight. It wasn't Molly Nye-Tobey's death. She died in 1984, but it was someone else in the family, and it was a lot of like, oh, this is the person who's wanting to write a book about Grandma Molly, and people were telling stories, and I was able to share them over the course of several episodes right around this time. We also had a bingo night that was based on Molly Nye-Tobey. Remember at the, come on, begins with an S, come on, the museum, Shelburne Museum. They have Molly Nye-Tobey's 50 states, right? Her hooked rugs of the 50 states. So unusual. And this episode of Bingo was Molly Nye-Tobey's 50 states. I had the 50 states in the call ball or whatever we were using at that time. And I would pull them out one by one, and you downloaded your bingo sheets. And if the state was called, I pulled up the Molly Nye-Tobey rug for that state and told you what she had said about her own rug. So it was a fun game on this night, but it was also a really educational episode. And it came right on the heels of a lot of Molly Nye-Tobey research. Nikki says, I bookmarked really historically academic episode on Prodi. Yep, there's a bunch of those in there too. I did some serious deep diving with the Prodi as well, and the sort of English tradition of rag rug making as opposed to hook rug. Carol says, I never missed those early shows. I learned so much history, bought so many books. Oh, thanks, Carol. Yeah, those were so fun. I mean, we kind of read all of the books at that point. There weren't any left at a certain point. And now I'm like pre-ordering books that are coming out. And once in a blue moon, I find a new book. But once in a while, I return to a book like a William Winthrop Kent or something like that, or Pearl McGowan book, just to sort of suck more of the content and the atmosphere out of them. Goretti says, so funny. I started last week going back to your older episodes while hooking. So enjoyable. Well, thank you, Goretti. It's so many hours of listening, right? And I listen to book cassettes for the same reason. This was a fun episode. I was trying, at this time, right, same month, I was doing a lot of academic stuff, but I was also doing a lot of trying different stuff. And I remember I was, cutting up sweaters still. I had just done a bunch of episodes on cutting up sweaters. And I remember this sweater was a Fair Isle sweater that I got when I lived in Amsterdam. And I loved it. And there's no way it was going to fit me. It was like, for an infant baby woman. And I had no hope of wearing it. So I wanted to hook with it. And I cut a strip off it vertically, and it completely like atomized in my hands. And then I cut a horizontal strip, and it completely atomized. And of course, it's Fair Isle. It's a Fair Isle type knit, so it's going to. There's so many color changes that there's like very short threads. So as soon as you cut it, right, they just like jump ship. So I figured out in this episode, I I cut the sweater in half, and I put the body of the sweater over my gripper frame. And I experimented live with hooking into the sweater with sock yarn, or maybe it's worsted weight or something like that. But I hooked into it, and dang it, it worked. It worked great. So this was one of those fun episodes where I did something live, and this happens often. Sometimes things don't work, and I go, yeah, no, you see me struggling. I can't recommend it. But sometimes things do work great, and it's so much fun when that happens. This episode, I'm holding up a picture of that somebody sent me after the first Molly Nitobia episode, right? She was from Barrington, Rhode Island, and that's where I grew up. So I have such fond and deep love and connection to Barrington. It's like permanently etched onto my heart. All of the streets, all of the strawberry festivals, all of the church bazaars and Christmas pageants, like they're all right at the front of my mind all the time. And Molly Nitobe was also from Barrington. In fact, she lived on Rumstick Point, where one of my best friends lived. So, and we crossed timelines, right? Because I was there from the 70s through my sophomore year of high school, which would have been I guess, late 80s, maybe 87, 88. She died in 84. So I definitely rubbed shoulders with her at the grocery store or the pharmacy, or Sackett's, which was the stationery store, or Cherry and Webb, which was the department store in time. I mean, I'm sure I rubbed shoulders with her, and it's exciting to think that. Of course, I didn't know that because I was young and I was not a rug hooker. But because I did the show about her, some people contacted me, and that was exciting. And one person contacted me and said, listen, I got so excited when I bumped into this because she was my neighbor. And she was so good to me and my sister. She made us each a special rug. And this, I'm holding up a photograph that she sent me on email. Her name was obviously Kathy. This was Kathy's rug. It's an original design that Molly and I, Toby, made and gave to the neighbor girl, just a little girl. And I'm holding it up here in this episode, where I will then talk about the Caswell carpet, the famous Caswell carpet. But yeah, I remember, and it still does happen. Occasionally someone stumbles on a video that has something to do, crosses with their family history or their knowledge, and then they get in touch, and then I'm able to share that information with you back here on the channel. So the whole thing goes full circle. Just mentioning, I can see that I also talk about the Caswell carpet in that episode. Just the Caswell carpet, right? I don't have an image of it here, but we've talked about it many times. It's that, I think it's 19th century. No, I think it's 18th century. It's not hooked. It's a sewn carpet. It has, it was like a room-sized carpet. It actually had pieces sewn onto it. It was like a bit of a mutant. Like I forget the first name, something, oh God, what was her name? Well, it's going to come out soon, so you'll get the whole backstory. But it was a girl, I think was it Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont? I think it was Maine. She was making this phenomenal rug. Like, it was like a dowry project, right? She just kept sewing these squares, and it's a beautiful rug that's now at the Museum of Folk Art, New York. And I have asked about it a couple of times, whether it's possible to go and take a video of it and see it. And so far the answer has been no, because it is ginormous. And they need so many people legally to take it out and unroll it that it's very hard for them to get that many people together at one time and to find a space large enough to safely handle it. But they know that I'm after it. I'm after looking at it and doing a video there. So I trust them that when they do take it out for some reason, we will know and we'll be able to go check it out. But in the meantime, what I meant to say about it, it had about 100 different patterns on different squares. It resembles a Baltimore album quilt where each square has a different motif. Very charming, and a lot about their personal family, but it's sort of universal, right? People walking or basket of flowers. Um, Remember how Jeannie Coates in our group just did the G's Bend thing last year, and it was in I think the country fair. No, it was in the last Magpie Times, but it was like the challenge, and I drew the pattern that I designed that was in the style of G's Bend, and Jeannie organized a group of people who wanted to hook the G's Bend pattern, and people were ordering it from me, or I had it as a free download, but I also offered to put it on backing in 3 different sizes, and tons of people did it, and that article reflected that in the last Magpie Times. And the next project that we're going to do like that, Jeannie's going to announce it hopefully soon, is the Caswell carpet. So I will be drawing out squares and kind of translating the Caswell carpet into bite-sized pieces that we all could do. We're kind of fleshing out the intention of the project, what we mean to do with it, but the next project in this, a group project in the style of G's Bend, will be the Caswell carpet, which is very, very different, but I think you're going to enjoy it just as much. Oh, Jane, my God, it's the middle of the night, honey. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Is it 1:30 in the morning over there? Holy moly's. Well, it's good to see you. I guess you're up, so you might as well be watching, right? I love you. It's good to see you. I miss you. All right, here we are. So to be continued on that Caswell carpet. Oh, this is the Caswell carpet. The Caswell carpet and the MANOR rug. So I was doing an episode here from you can see a really old, probably 1920s, 1930s copy of Antiques magazine. If you remember, during the 1920s and 1930s, the editor, I'm never going to remember his name, but the editor of Antiques magazine during those decades was a collector of hooked rugs and a lover of textiles. And so many of the Antiques magazines from that period heavily feature articles on hooked rugs and quilts and textiles in general. So this is one of those examples, the Caswell carpet. And this is what it looks like. This is a portion of it. This is the piece that features the blue cat. It's not showing in this particular image, but this is a fraction. This thing is like 50 times bigger than that. So we'll look forward to doing that in the near future together. What's going on here? Oh, right. I came out of the shower, obviously, and here's Joss. We must be headed toward winter because she's wearing her ugly sweater that I made for her to wear to school for the contest, and she won. She got a bunch of horrible ornaments, and I stitched like tinsel around this horrible sweater. But yeah, she won, so she was pleased with that. In this episode, we were talking about Pearl McGowan, her book, the Lore and Lore. Oh no, that's not her book. It's the Lore. Hers is the Lore. It's not the Lore and Lore, is it? I mean, I know she's got several. I didn't think that was quite it. Something like that in any case. It must have been around Thanksgiving because you can see I'm wearing, you know what, it must have been, this is some confusion of seasons because I'm wearing my Thanksgiving shirt, but she's wearing her Christmas sweater. Maybe I had just made it and I was showing it off. Maybe that was it. In any case, you can see the kind of numbers that these videos are getting. So just so you know, right, this channel is, I'm gonna do a weird plug right here. So just give me 1 minute. A huge thank you to Patreon members, right? And I'm not ending this episode. We still have a little bit of time. But huge thank you to Patreon members who support this brand, Ribbon Candy Hooking, because no matter what you contribute on a monthly basis, it helps me a ton. Historically, I have put together what you've seen. Going forward, I'm on 2 days a week at the moment. And the reason it's not 3 like it was before is because I've got to work on Magpie Times, and I've got to work on a bunch of books that will be published that are all group project books that have our work in it. Those are things I'm working on behind the scenes, right? And there's literally only so many hours in the day. So I'm trying to put out as many things as I can to sell, because now selling is a bit of a problem since I'm not putting out that many new products anymore. And the emphasis is more on working on the magazine and getting books out. And then I do the show 2 days a week. So Patreon members, eternal thank you. We would not be here still celebrating the 5th anniversary. There would be no 5th anniversary if you didn't support the channel through Patreon. And when you think about it, right, and this is like the most direct plug I have ever made in my life. When you think about it, joining Patreon is not just about what you get this month. It is to support the 2,000 videos that are already uploaded on the brand that will attract new hookers, new textile artists, right, new fiber lovers, and will bring them to the craft, right? This is something that I've already built, and I continue to work on 7 days a week, working on shows and projects in general, not just YouTube. Is 90% of what I do is not something that I make money for, right? Packing orders, that's the money part. Doing this, not at all. So just to give you a perspective of all of these videos, right? This video was made in 2020. It has had 598 views. That seems like a lot of views, but even though there's commercials in it, YouTube does not monetize it until it hits 1,000 views. So I'm nowhere near, and it's entirely likely that all of these coffee time videos, at least in my lifetime, will not hit 1,000 views unless there's a crazy surgence of rug hookers. There might be a little bump up here and there, like it's been steadily bumping, but doubling, I can't see that happening soon. So just for those of you who support me on Patreon, just understand, if you're seeing commercials and thinking, man, she must be getting rich with these videos. I'm absolutely not. None of the coffee time videos, which are 90% of the videos on this channel, have enough views to be monetized, and again, might never. So either we drum up more rug hookers or we drum something up. But Patreon members in the meantime have really been floating the brand. And so thank you so much. It makes it possible to buy stuff and to take time out to work on stuff that's for all of us. Ooh, Homer Eaton Keys. Oh my God, Nikki, it is Homer Eaton Keys. I thought for a minute, why does that sound familiar? He was the editor. That was great. Thank you. Thank you. It is Homer Eaton Keys. It absolutely is. Now, I wish there was a book on that man. I wish there was a book on that man, and I wish there was a book on his collections, since he was such a lover of textiles, and he would have in his lifetime, as he often showed in Antiques magazine, he had so many great examples of early hook drags. Oh my God. I would love to see some kind of a biography on him and his years, so many years as editor of Antiques magazine. What an interesting life that man must have had. Thank you. It is called, Rita, it is called The Lore and Lore of Hook Drugs. God, that's a clever title, isn't it? She's good. She was good. All righty, let's see. Okay, I'm just catching up on comments too. So let's see, what's going on here? What were we doing in this episode? Pearl McGowan, her life and lore. So, yep, this is a continuation of that. We scratched the surface with Pearl McGowan's life, but we hardly got into it. She has got, I think, 4 books. Of course, all of her letters too, and I do have all of those like newsletters that she sent out. I have all of them. She's got a lot, and then the small pamphlets that were kind of staple bound books on dyeing and oriental patterns and all kinds of subjects. I've got all those too. So we still have a lot to dig into, that's for sure. Now, in this episode, I remember I guess this was 2020. It was the year that I popped up on Thanksgiving morning because I was about to go celebrate Thanksgiving at my sister's. I had my Thanksgiving turkey shirt on. It's the turkey hooker, and his body's like a hook. I did this pop-up sort of episode that morning on rugs in Norman Rockwell paintings, right? Norman Rockwell, I think I'd just been to the museum for the umpteenth time. Love him. Hitting the holidays reminds me of Norman Rockwell, right? And any year. But in this year, I went through my collections of picture books, because when I was a tour guide, I used to take people to his museum every week in Stockbridge. And I went through all of the books, and I photographed examples of rugs. Now, most of them were braided rugs, and some of them were like loomed rugs, but it was a whole episode about rugs that can be seen in Norman Rockwell paintings. And I did a little bit on his life too, because I already had it in my head from those tour guide years. But I feel like it was a fun episode, and it was a great example of community, because at that time, right, we were in COVID, everybody was freaked out, a lot of people were at home, a lot of people were not traveling to their loved ones, and it was super important to me on this Thanksgiving. Also on Christmas that year, I think I was live on both Christmas and Thanksgiving that year, because it was really important in my mind to be there for people who didn't have anything planned. I mean, I was lucky that our whole family was going 5 minutes away to my sister's house, but I knew not everybody had that lucky situation going. So I feel like that morning I was very proud, and I felt even happier about the holiday, having put that show up and knowing that it was there for people to watch on Thanksgiving. Now, November 30th, weekend catch up. So this must have been the weekend right after Thanksgiving. Holiday patterns, Secret Santa. I was wondering what that meant. Does anybody remember that? Did we do something with like a Secret Santa? Did we do exchanges? I feel like we did a rug exchange at one point. I wonder if it was the Secret Santa. And God, it seems so long ago. I just can't remember how it worked out. Like, did it work out well? I can't remember. But I am wearing my Jam Santa Witch shirt. Get it? Instead of Jam Sandwich, Jam Santa Witch. I got to get these shirts available again. These were available for a while as shirts, bags, bumper stickers, what have you. This was an important day too. This was an important day for me, and it was an important day for Amy, because Amy Oxford's book, this huge, beautiful hardcover Bible of punch needle, came out during COVID, and I reviewed this in great detail over the course of a couple of episodes, I think. And she has said to me every time that I've seen her since that when she watched these episodes, she was just sitting there crying and watching, because it was so heartbreaking for her to have put, this book is thick, right? You probably have this book. It is massive. It is a tome. She put so much work and so much of herself into this book, and it's like it came out, it came and went, and it was like invisible, like it was not even a blip on the radar. Nobody reviewed it. There was no sort of book tour. There were no signings. Nothing happened with the book. And she said this was like the one and only time that the book was featured. And she, we became immediate friends because she was so happy that I did it, and I was so grateful to be in touch with her because she's such a famous person, such a nice person now I know. But she brings that up every time I see her, and it's amazing that she remembers that because it is a little while ago now. This is December, back in action. I wonder if this is after I had shingles. I think I had shingles right here, and I took a couple days off. And at that time, I thought it was like the end of the world because I was going 5 days a week. And man, shingles was not fun. I didn't even have it bad, but man, it was not fun. I think that must have been right around that time. Yeah, and I was back to the Proma Gown. You can see behind me I have some Proma Gown sort of samplers or teachers samplers that I had bought from different people that I had found so far, former Proma Gown teachers. And I had brought out my rugs that I had identified as Proma Gown patterns. Amy Oxford rocks. She does. She does. I was so happy to, I think she actually, no, I bought that book and then she sent me the second book as a gift. And of course I reviewed that one as well. And again, review is the wrong word. I admired it. I admired that one as well. So we went through a period of Proma Gown that lasted about a month, I think. The exotic Proma Gown, the wise and Moroccan and Persian patterns. I remember these episodes were so specific. If you love Proma Gown or you love learning the history of the Proma Gown patterns, this episode was specifically, it sounds so crazy, about patterns that were the Moroccan Y. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm going to draw it and show it to you. This is what I mean by at this time, these episodes were like really... I'm trying to remember. I got it. Yeah, I got it. I know exactly. Yep, I got it. Hold on. Let me show you. Yep. You know what? Let me do this. Let me bring you right here. This is what the Y was, right? It was I just practiced it right here. It was a pattern that looked like this. It's like a Y, and then you put another Y on top of it, or I can't do it upside down. Right? And then no, I can't do it upside down. Y, yes, Y. So Y's next to each other. You see what I mean? And then Y's under here, and it makes a tile design. We did like a whole episode on her patterns that included either in the background or in the border, that sort of exotic Y pattern. That's an ancient design. But Proma Gown did so much with it. It was like at that point we were just pulling the smallest motifs out and then doing like tons of research to find all of the rugs that included it, going through all of the books and all of that. Gosh, that was so much fun. I do want to get into some more history stuff. I loved Amy Oxford's book. I'm just not good at punch needle. Beautiful book. Yeah, Tammy, I feel the same way. I'm not great at punch needle, and at this point, time is such a commodity for me, and there's so many people around me, colleagues who are so much better at it. I kind of leave it to them. I leave Rebecca White Martin just taught a class through ribbon candy hooking in December, because she's so, I mean, she teaches punch. She's like the punch queen. She's also on the Tigger board. She's a VP. I had her teach a punch class because I know I needed one on ribbon candy, and I thought, although I will be teaching another Amish toothbrush class, so I will reprise Amish toothbrush, and I will be putting that up over the weekend. So we can look forward to that. I'll run a few of them live so you can see my hands, and I can help you live too. Yeah, I know it's a lot, Judy, isn't it? Um, oh, and Cece says, I'm much better at punching than hooking. It's great that we're all good at different things, isn't it? We can let our light shine and it's nice in our own arena, but it's nice to cross over sometimes too, because it's also good for your hands, to not be doing the same movement again and again and again. All right, here we go. I'm going to keep going. In this one, I remember this one well. It was a dyeing one, and I had just dyed some stuff that was behind me, and I was showing you the different effects. And it wasn't a dyeing class. I was obviously not at the stove, but I was showing you a bunch of stuff that I had dyed and how I got some different effects. And in this episode, we were talking about Mackenzie Childs. And if you remember, I took out like a classic Pearl McGowan chair seat pattern. It was just a round or square pattern that had flowers in the middle. And to kind of update it or make it look different, I did the classic Mackenzie Childs like black and white checkerboard in the background of it. And I think a few of you picked up that idea. A few of you found like a Pearl McGowan pattern that you hadn't done yet and did that checkerboard in the back. And it was just like a fun little kind of mini movement that we had going on at that time. In December, we were talking about early America and rugs, like with a double G. So we were not talking about hooked rugs. We were talking about sewn rugs, and in some rare cases, woven rugs, certainly imported rugs. But we were getting into deeper history here, and I was loving these conversations because when I was a tour guide, my special sort of area of knowledge was early America. So anything early American is particularly decorative is great for me. So we had some great conversations in these days. This was right around that time about the hearth rug, right? The 19th century hearth rug, its place in the home, and also agricultural fairs. This was the era when people started making rugs, and they, for the first time in the late 19th century, started to be entered into local agricultural fairs. And women were so proud to be able to enter a rug that they had made. And this whole episode touches on that moment in history, those early local country agricultural fairs where you would see hooked rugs hanging for the first time and being judged. Oh, Valerie, you are the best at encouraging us all to shine. Thanks and happy birthday to Ribbon. It is a birthday to the Ribbon Candy Hooking channel. It so is. Thank you so much. So much. Oh, I had just gotten the studio, right? Because I painted the walls the Pepto-Bismol pink and immediately hated it. This was an episode where I was making Prati flowers with you and my buddy Heather. And we were talking about not just Prati flowers, but Prati versus Waldoboro. So raised sculptural hooking. I had my pencil tree behind me. I still have that tree. Trying to make it festive. I had literally just gotten into this space. I'm actually packing this space up right now because I just never go anymore. This space is like 25 minutes from my house each way. And my days right now revolve around dropping the kids off at different schools now, picking them an hour apart, and then picking them up an hour apart in the afternoon. And it's a lot of running around and a lot of back and forth. And it just doesn't work out for me to be, several towns away anymore. So it's a bummer, but I'm doing more writing now and working on the magazine. So I'm kind of jammed into this one room here. But we'll bust it out again in the future. I'm sure you're going to see that mantle again one of these days. In this episode, feather tufting, Waldoboro, and I did this one with my mom. You can see we're in her upstairs hall. So much fun. Feather tufting is basically punch, but it's done with a similar tool, but like miniature. It's like Russian punch, right? It looks a little bit like that, but with feather tufting, you're leaving a pile right? So it has like it's clipped. It's the equivalent of clipped, but it's tiny, tiny sort of threads or very, very fine gauge yarn, feather tufting. And I had a few examples of feather tufting that I had found at like yard sales or antique stores or whatever. So we were further defining Waldoboro by saying it's raised, right? During this time, we were talking about all kinds of rug making that was raised. It's not Waldoboro, it's not Proddy, it's feather tufting, right? So this whole episode was that conversation. And here I'm back at home wearing a sweater that I'm sorry to say I still have. Yeah, this episode was about tomato pincushion lore because I put out that pattern behind me, the tomato pincushion. That's still one of the best-selling patterns. I loved working on that at the time. It was a heavily hit or miss pattern, but because I put the pattern out and it was selling very well, I did an episode on pincushion lore. How can there be enough pincushion lore to make a full episode? Well, there is. There definitely is. And in this episode too, I think I talked about Alexander Calder. Alexander Calder is one of those artists. He was from Connecticut. He lived in Connecticut. He's mostly known for his mobiles. I always get confused when I say that out loud. It's like coach and couch mobiles. That's what he's really known for. But he did design some rugs that his wife and himself and his neighbors, like friends of his wife, executed for him that were absolutely hooked rugs. So I think we talked about Alexander Calder also in the episode with the tomato pincushions. It was just another great nugget. I found an article or something about the hooked rugs. That was it. Or maybe I think somebody sent it to me. Must have been that. And it allowed me to do some research and fluff out the information that I had. That's what it was. Somebody sent me, yes, that's what it was. Somebody sent me a photo of what looked like an Alexander Calder textile. And it was not one of his rugs. It was one of his paintings that was done as like a latch hook rug or something like that. It didn't seem to me like it had a ton of value. It seemed like it was something from like the 1970s. I mean, he's a mid-century artist and from that time too, but it was not one of his rugs. And I remember in researching to give the guy an answer, I discovered that there were hooked rugs and then I got very excited. But then I realized that wasn't one of the patterns of the hooked rugs, but still very, very exciting. Yeah. This was a great time, and it's still a great time. I miss being on more. At this moment, it's just like, do I want to be on more and not do Magpie, or do I want to keep going with Magpie and be on twice a week? It's a something's got to give. I remember this episode well, too. This was right around the holidays, I think right after Christmas. It looks like I'm drinking a Bloody Mary. And the conversation was about Amish design, plain and fancy quilts. So we crossed over I had just done a pattern that I think was called Plain and Fancy that borrowed heavily from the log cabin quilt block, but was of two skaters it was a very symmetrical pattern. So for this episode, I wasn't talking about rugs, I was talking about quilts, but I was making the crossover to Amish design, and I did bring up some examples of Amish rug making in this episode as well. So it was a little bit different. Yeah, very cool Connecticut artist. I love Calder. Adam and Eve. Yep. So episodes like this, right, where I'm only looking for rugs that include Adam and Eve, like real specific at this time. I was racking my brain thinking of what we could find and looking at rugs and going, do any of these rugs have anything in common? Can I build a show? Can I find more? Can I fluff out the content I've had? So that episode was just about rugs that included Adam and Eve. What was this? The figure in rug hooking, part 2. This might have been around the time that I was looking at that book called, what was it called? Michelle McReilly had Ray, Rita, what's Ray's last name? R-A-E, Bear, or was it called Bear or Baird or not Stripped? It was a book of nudes. It was a book of self-portrait nudes. Do you remember that episode? I think I handled it in 2, and I think this is one of those 2 episodes. And I remember it was Ray. Oh, I almost had it. Harrell. I knew you would know. Ray Harrell. Baird. Was it called Baird? It was a purple book. It almost looked like a dirty book with like a paper cover, so you couldn't see the actual cover. It was meant to look like that because inside it was all nudes. And I remember I was so angry at this moment because I put up an episode, and I used Michelle McRelly's like reclining, herself reclining. I forget what that piece is called, but you can probably picture it. And YouTube flagged it and pulled it. And like, I wouldn't say I got in trouble, but I was afraid they were going to take my whole channel down. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. I posted a picture of a nude done in hook drugs. Meanwhile, you can pull up, you know, any artist's painting in the world with full nudes, orgies. You can pull up detailed videos of sculptures where you can see the meat and the veg and everything clearly, and they're going to shut down a video that is a hook drug of a reclining nude. I mean, I was so upset. I was so worried that they would kill all of the previous episode. Barely Hooked. Thank you, Rita. Barely Hooked. I might have 2 copies of that too. I don't know if that's one that's easy to find anymore either. I know I got mine from Michelle, and then I found another like in a bookcase. Thank you. Yeah, no, Barely Hooked. You're absolutely right. Yep, that one, the interview with Michelle McRelly. We've done a couple of those. She's a firecracker, isn't she? I always have to be real careful. I always say to her before we go live, it's not like we're alone. Do not talk like we're alone. Do not say all of the words that you say when we are alone. But sometimes, you know, and I'm getting a little bit more casual as time goes on myself. But yeah, those are great episodes. This was a great episode too. I was looking at the I was looking at alphabets, and I looked at Patty Yoder from the book that Kathy Smith put together, because she must have done something with alphabets. And Nancy Thomas had a book, nothing to do with rug hooking, but of course I think I still own rights to the patterns. She did a whole alphabet. It was an alphabet of sweets. So this whole episode was about doing alphabets as rug hooking, and we were talking about that difficult subject of hooking text, right? A lot during that episode. What was this one on? Let's see, rug hooking and punch needle. Gosh, what's that one on? I can't even tell. Come on, isn't there a clue? How weird is that? I put it up there. I must have put it up there for a reason, but I can't tell what it was about. Gosh, that's weird. CC, have to run. Oh, I'll see you next time. I'm glad that you were there. Patty did the sheep alphabet. Patty, Rita, it's Patty, is it Patty Yoder? Or am I crossing wires right there? I might be crossing wires. It's been a really long time. I have that book. That is a super rare book, The Hooked Alphabet. That is a super rare book. Patty Yoder. Yep. Yeah, but I covered 2 books that night. Nancy Thomas's Alphabet of Sweets and Patty Yoder's Alphabet. I don't know what the book was called, but the whole book was a oversized hardcover, and it was all hook drugs, but the alphabet hooked. I think that is a super rare book. Oh, thank you. You kept my sanity during the pandemic. Forever thankful. Me too, likewise, right? I would have just been spinning out, getting more and more depressed during that time if we didn't have to come here and show up for each other. That was really something, wasn't it? All right, yeah, let's see. Hang on. I think I'm going to, we'll go for another couple of minutes, but yeah, I have way too many slides. But I do like talking about these older episodes. It reminds me of what we've done, and maybe it can help us think about what else we need to do. To remember this book, the Edith O'Neill Primitives, the Rugs from a Red Cape. That book was colossal. That's what I was doing in this episode. Somebody told me afterward that Edith O'Neill's The Red Cape, I feel like it was in Texas, like it was an antique, like a very antique home, like a 17th or 18th century home that she moved, I want to say, to Texas, and somebody told me it had burnt down because she had all of her beautiful rugs in it. Patty's book is called The Alphabet of Sheep. Okay, thank you. Yep, we looked at it in that episode, and man, that was a great episode. That was a lot of fun. Welcome back to the primitive world. Yep, this is at the beginning of 2021. We got heavy into primitives. We started talking about primitives all the time, and I went through an all primitives phase, and I think I kind of dragged you through although we kept looking at our book reviews, this is not a flattering top, is it? And I started recording videos like this, where I had gone to Joann's or Michael's or one of those, and I had bought a bunch of yarn. And I bought one of those cakes of yarn that color changes and has like 30, I think this had like 34, 35 colors in the one cake. And these were episodes where I would buy really inexpensive stuff from box stores and show that it was and it is very possible and very easy to make beautiful work using supplies that are not expensive at all from your local store. Because people were saying, well, I don't have a rug store near me. I have a lot near me, and I was recording shows from them and going to these guild meetings, but not everybody had that, and I was realizing that. So I started to record a series of videos where I would go and buy I was going to say some crap, but it really wasn't. It's beautiful yarn and some nice stuff. And at the end of the day, when it's all hooked up, sometimes those, box store yarns and stuff are not as luxurious to handle and to touch. And that is a bit of a snobby thing to say. For me, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But I know a lot of people feel like if you're going to spend time with something, you want to really enjoy the experience. And part of it is tactile, and nicer things are sometimes nicer to use. But I was making the point with these videos that you can buy very inexpensive stuff and make stuff that's just as beautiful, right? Once something's all made up, no one's going to say, oh, Jesus, is that lion yarn or is that red heart? Nobody's going to say that. People are just going to say, wow, look at what you made. That was really good. And I was recording a bunch of not live videos during this time that were for beginners, right? That were things that people were saying, I still don't know how to do this. And this was just how to cut wool strips. And there was tons of these. There were others. I think I was using a Bliss or maybe a Rigby or something like that. This was also the era, still COVID, of course. It's definitely COVID. I'm holding my mask. In this episode, I look like I'm crying, but I wasn't. I think the sun was in my face. And I found a store near where my studio is in Woodbridge, Connecticut, called the Yarn Barn. I still go there all the time. And I went in and did a video. We had our masks on. It was probably difficult understanding, but I tried to make it work. And I was looking at all of the different types of yarn, weights of yarn, content of the different yarns, and talking about how they would work, good, better, best, for your rug hooking projects. And in this year, there was a few little road trips that I took with my mask on. There was a bunch, actually. Now, don't you miss bingo? I mean, I miss bingo. I do. I'm thinking maybe, the thing about bingo, if you joined us after I stopped running it, the thing about bingo, we had bingo nights once a month, and people were allowed to buy a card for $1 each. Some people bought, I can't remember, there was always like a formula, like if you bought X amount of cards, I would always give you one of each. I would never give you repeats. So say they were 8 or 11 possible cards because of the mathematics of the bingo places, right? And some people would buy all and absolutely win. Other people didn't want to have to keep track of all. That was the other part of the thing. Goretti, that helped Mike with his punching. Oh, that's great. It was fun. And the thing was, we would collect all the cards. I would tell you at the beginning how many cards were sold so you knew how much money was in the pot. And, a few times we could not win money, but you would win a credit. So somebody would win like a credit to the Ribbon Candy Hooking store. Sometimes people won like $65 if there were only like 2 winners. Sometimes just law of averages. Sometimes it was a card that was like, for example, the 11th card, it was like number 11. So lots of people bought 1 or 2 cards and maybe I tried to alternate the cards, but sometimes one card sold more than others. The odds, right? Like betting on a horse or something. There was odds. And sometimes like the card that had the least people were holding was the winner. And then people sometimes won quite a bit in a gift certificate, but we obviously could not send out money or anything like that. But damn it, it was fun. It was so fun, and it was exciting toward the end to remember how, for people who were new coming on, and I'm not making fun of new people, but remember how when people new were coming on, I would say, we're playing blackout. So it's not directional bingo. Like You have to cross out every one. And there was always one in the center, like Joss was doing something funny, or Teddy, or it was something funny that was like the free space in the center, and it was blackout. And do you remember how it was adorable? How at the beginning, like we'd be like 3 calls in, and somebody would shout bingo, and it was like, that's not possible. That's not what it was. So funny. It happened, and then they'd say, "Oh my God, I get it, I get it." For the next time, I got so nervous about running bingo, even though we weren't playing for money, but the cards were being sold from Ribbon Candy Hooking, and I thought, is this gambling? I'm just not sure. I just wasn't sure. And around this time, or you're getting a lot of the behind the scenes stuff tonight. Around this time, I noticed that a lot of people, and I still notice this, were reporting posts for no reason on like Facebook, and reporting stuff on YouTube that was absolutely, it was rug hooking, right? There's no rules broken. It was rug hooking, no adult content, you know. People were reporting my stuff quite a bit in the Facebook group and on YouTube. And I was starting to get really nervous. It still happens quite a bit. And I know, like, Loretta Senna, is that how you pronounce her name? Loretta Senna? I know she lost her Facebook page at one point, and my understanding was that she didn't know how. And I thought, it is possible for people who don't like you to get your stuff shut down. It was making me very nervous. So I thought, let me not do anything that might result in me getting in big trouble and like having the channel be shut down, because then that content would be gone. And also our Facebook group, which is now Rug Cooking and Punch Needle Club, which dates to November 5 years ago. Let's see how many people are in. It doesn't show me the actual number anymore. It shows me like there's over 23,000 people in our group now. So that's a lot. And then when I look at the pending posts, I always check the moderation alert. No, that's all. That's fine. That's Valerie. That's one of your comments, so I know you're good. But sometimes there's something that's reported. And sometimes I look to see who reported it, and it's not someone in the group, and I'm thinking, oh man, I wonder if someone is trying to like, whatever. Paranoia will destroy ya. Or not. Or not. So anyway, why don't we stop there? Let's do one more. Cheers, my dears. And we can look at a little more of the early content on Monday when I come back on. That'll give us something to talk about. There's a lot more shows that I would like to remember. I'm not going to go through all 5 years, right? Because and I'm not going show per show, but just hitting ones that when I pulled them up, I thought, oh, that was a really good subject. That's worth thinking about, maybe even revisiting. I was just so happy and excited to see some of these shows again, and it did give me some ideas for more content. Always remember, right? If you have ideas for content, let me know. I'm trying to do so many different things right now, and I really do want to get around to doing some other kinds of shows. I still want to get around, like now. I want to get around now to doing 2-person shows again, where like I could do not even an interview, just to talk with other rug hookers. I've said this before, but now I have the technology to do it, and I know how to do it. So let me know. Send me an email, right? Don't write me here because I won't be able to see the thread after I close. Send an email to ribboncandyhooking@gmail.com if you would be willing to do a show with me, like a coffee time. And I never put anybody on the spot ever. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't have to be super experienced. You don't have to be experienced. You could be a beginner, and you could come on and say, hey, I'm working on my first piece. I'm having all kinds of problems. And we could talk about that together live, and it would be helpful for a lot of people. You could be someone who's like, well, I haven't made anything lately, but have some of the stuff that you did make around you so we can look at it together, talk about it, and have a really nice conversation over coffee time. I'd like to start a series of coffee time shows where I talk to people in different parts of North America and other places in the world. Right? We have to be thoughtful about the time differences and all that for all of us. But I'd like to start doing live shows where I can ask you questions about projects you're working on, your inspirations, your stories. Even if you just do, and I don't mean just, even if you only do commercial patterns, that's great. I could still talk about rug hooking with you, and it'd be like friends having coffee and talking, right? And then our rug hooking community gets to know you and your name too. And there you are, right? Forever in the list of videos. People can put a name to a face. If you're willing to do that, send me an email, because I think it would be a lot of fun to do that, every now and then. I'd like to do it often. And Carol says, congratulations again on successful 5 years. Ribbon candy hooking has changed the face of rug hooking and punching. And we love you for it. Thank you so much. I love you too. And I will see you. I think I'm going to see you in the spring. I will see you in the spring. So, hey, everybody, thank you for being here for this party. It was a lot of fun. I'll conclude this slideshow on Monday, and we'll look at the last videos that I wanted to talk about a little bit, things that we covered in 2020 in the early days. In the meantime, what have I got to tell you? I'll put up the Amish toothbrush class. Be thinking about Magpie Times, Busy Bee, due February 1st. Make sure you're working on that. Remember that I do have some new products up, like Ring in the New, the first Cordelia piece, right? It's the January piece. It comes as a kit or as a pattern or as a download. It's Cordelia hanging rugs up on the laundry line, and it says Ring in the New. It's a piece that I just finished. I'm almost finished with the February one right now of Cordelia. That will be a dye book that comes out at the end of this year. So jump onto the Cordelia bandwagon, because they're very simple, primitive designs that you can really play with. Real sketchbook quality with a lot of hit or miss potential. So be looking at that, and help me think of who the next artist will be for the Design Like series. I was thinking about returning to artists who we've already covered. Sometimes just because a lot of people write and say, I love the live recording, but I so wish that I could have this as a live show. Some people, like the real beloveds, like Maud Lewis, Van Gogh. I mean, there have been a bunch that people say, oh, did I really miss that? And I was thinking about returning once in a while, doing a design like that returns to artists who we've covered before, but looking at different work. I was thinking about running a Maud Lewis class that's like going through the seasons with Maud. So we're not necessarily looking at like the huge trajectory of her work and all of her motifs and all of that, but we're specifically looking at the seasons, in her work. And a lot of similar conversations, same biography, right? But live again. So let me know if you think that's interesting, or if you have some great ideas. Hunter Foster went down great. That was really exciting. I hope you're logged on to that, or I hope that you're going to get the recorded version of that, because it really was fun. Hey, everybody, happy weekend, happy anniversary, and cheers, Madeiras, and I will see you on Monday.